Recently, Palmer Luckey, founder of Oculus VR, wrote an interesting piece for his personal blog. Titled "Free Isn't Cheap Enough," Luckey argues that sales are ultimately a poor metric by which to measure the success of VR, and that instead it's engagement that really matters, meaning the degree to which the existing VR market actively uses their headsets. Reading from his post, recent market experiments with cheap VR hardware have shown that there are millions of people willing to buy said hardware, but very few among them continue to use the hardware or invest in the software ecosystem for very long. This is true even when people get the hardware for free. The millions of cardboard boxes fulfilling their ultimate destiny on the back shelf of a closet don't do much for the VR industry. Why the lack of use? Quality of experience. This comes off the heels of Oculus co-founder Brendan Irieb announcing his departure from Oculus and its parent company Facebook just days prior. According to TechCrunch, Irieb's decision to leave was due to disagreements with the company's direction. I found Luckey's premise interesting, this distinction between the realities of business and cultivation of a new medium through realistic expectations. And while I would love to see the market experiments he cited, I tend to agree with him. The difference between my PS4 and Xbox One is that my PS4 has games. PlayStation's exclusive lineup this generation has been a smash hit. It's gotten me to turn my PS4 on at a near daily pace for months at a time. Sony provided an excellent vessel for entertainment and allowed artists to set sail. Microsoft, current strides aside, struggled with that this generation, and it's shown. Sony got me to engage with their product not because of flashy hardware specs, but because they excelled in creating an environment that made content flourish and made me, as a consumer, engage with that content. Games are the bedrock of the gaming industry. It sounds self-evident and redundant, yet somehow always worth repeating. So what is needed for more people to engage with VR? Is it cheaper prices? Is it a wireless headset? Is it lesser of a hardware gate? There's no doubt those elements do factor in, but what's most important is quality of content. How games are developed. The foundation of VR's future lies in the medium's abilities to create experiences impossible to replicate anywhere else. I've made a few videos about my love for VR, and this is a topic I've touched on in the past. But when discussing VR's viability as a product, this cannot be overstated. VR games must be developed to take advantage of VR's inherent versatility. Anything else dilutes VR into a technologically impressive way to play games, but not an absolutely necessary one. My go-to example for this is Onward, a tactical first-person shooter developed by Downpour Interactive. Now, tactical first-person shooters obviously exist outside VR, but Onward adds variables to the equation that can't exist outside VR. Accuracy is partly determined by how steady you hold your hands. The time it takes you to reload or take cover is determined by how quickly you physically do those things. If your knees get tired of crouching behind cover, your options are to sit down or risk standing up. Without fundamentally altering Onward's gameplay, it's impossible to play it without a headset. Star Trek Bridge Crew is a good example of a game definitely made better in VR, but not impossible to play without a headset. In fact, developer Red Storm made the game playable outside VR last year. VR adds immersion and scale, and for big Star Trek fans like myself, it's a treat to sit in the Enterprise and feel like I'm there. But the gameplay, pressing buttons and managing your ship's systems, isn't designed in such a way that it's inseparable from VR. VR in Star Trek Bridge Crew is closer to gimmick than anything else, while VR in Onward is essential to the experience. It uses VR to its full capacity. As Luckey said, the lasting power of VR directly correlates with the mechanical depth and creativity of games and apps. And while producing lower cost, more consumer-friendly versions of the Oculus might help in the short term, you have to wonder how much that sacrifice undercuts developers' abilities to make great games. If you'll allow me to cautiously speculate for a second, consider this. Insomniac's Stormland is slated for release sometime in spring 2019. It's an open-world game built specifically for VR. It will release for the Oculus Rift and the mid-tier Oculus Quest, which was announced in late September. The Oculus Quest is wireless and uses inside-out tracking, meaning external sensors in a gaming PC aren't required. The Quest emphasizes comfort at the cost of the graphical fidelity and power of a gaming PC. I'll reserve judgment for Stormland itself when I actually play it, but I think it's reasonable to wonder if the Quest's limited hardware relative to gaming PCs will change Stormland. Stormland? And if so, how? Additionally, the Quest's battery is said to last somewhere between 2 and 3 hours on a full charge, which I can only guess means you'll need to plug the Quest in for extended play sessions, like if you're exploring an open world. That's of course assuming you'd want to do that. Oculus recommends not to use the Go while it's charging, and while it's early, it's tough to tell if that's the case for the Quest as well. Whatever the case, the larger point here is that I think it's perfectly reasonable to wonder if and how these limitations change developers' approach to game design and gameplay. A source told TechCrunch eReeb left Oculus because he wasn't interested in offering compromised experiences that provided short-term user growth but sacrificed on comfort and performance. If you don't have a catalog of must-haves, the proverbial killer apps, then no matter how cheap and consumer-friendly your headset might be, you'll come out with the same exact problem you had before: an impressive piece of technology with few substantial and worthwhile experiences.